We should be able to hold them directly to the scope of the work, and typically our track record is very low change orders, so we should be able to go through the project with minimal change orders also to arrive at that contract amount.
And we've actually been asked that from contractors here recently, but there is no statute or stance of adjusting contract price, so we've remained, um, forthright with what that is. So we intend for the contract price to be the price that we enter into and sign for as we move forward.
Okay, I was just curious, on some projects I'm working on that materials are 12, 15 weeks out. Once they're ordered and locked in, I'm guaranteed at that price, even though, fuel costs may rise, delivery costs may rise. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, most of the contractors, knowing where they're at now, even like the bigger suppliers, so, whether it's Train or Dakin or whoever, those are HVAC units. Most of those manufacturers are building in a cost escalation, so it's going to be a 15-week time period. They are at least this point educated with the problems we have here, so they can safeguard the pricing for their contractors.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, but we have to pass a resolution that we're gonna use that organization to have access to funds. We do not have to make a determination on how much we're financing at this time, because we do have money set aside. I think it's written up to a certain number, and we can always, just like we do with the budget, adjust accordingly. John, Bob, you had sent some email questions. Can we just touch base? There were some things you needed from the admin team that I got recently, like locations of the fire mats and some other things. Can we just do that before the end of the week?
Yeah, absolutely. And basically there was some question of, data outlets and things of that nature, whether or not, because we show quite a few of them, maybe we're showing too many. There were some other locations for things that we highlighted to you. So yes, when you have a moment, we can definitely walk through those and kind of just touch base on whatever your needs are. The other thing was the ESSER funding question, if that's going to be a possible solution here or not. If that's even, I don't know if it's even applicable. However, if it becomes that situation, we would have to make sure to include a separate set of wage rates because it's a federally funded.
Yeah, I've done some inquiring into that. For the heating and air conditioning and ventilation, we have to get prior approval for usage of.
Yep.
But, I mean, it seems like it's something that will be able to be covered, so I'd like to at least keep that separate so we can begin that process for heating, ventilation, air conditioning for that, okay?
Okay, yeah, and that's, like I said, that typically when we bid out a project that's using state-funded dollars, we need to make sure that we're including prevailing wage rates that are set by the state of Pennsylvania. So we'll request those on your behalf, make sure that they are in our front-end documents so that our bidders are accommodating those prices for their workers into their bid. When you use the ESSER funding, it's something that was decided upon by the federal government. You are now using federal dollars, and now you have to use what is called the Davis-Bacon rates that essentially accomplish the same thing, but there may be differences between the two, and it's up to the contractor to make sure that those are accommodated. So we'll just need to make sure that those are in the project, and then whether you would be using federally funded, finance or the ESSER rate funds at that point, kind of open and free to you.
Anybody here at the table have any questions for the architects at this time? All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll be in touch before the end of the week, and then we'll set the time frame, all right?
That sounds good. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good night.
So does everybody have this motion? So everyone understands what we're talking about tonight is we are authorizing up to that amount, up to $1,700,000. It doesn't mean that's what we're going to borrow. Certainly we'll be borrowing a large chunk of that, and this locks us in at this interest rate of 1.75%, which is actually a pretty good interest rate. So then what we're gonna have to discuss, and when will we be deciding which, like how much we plan on, when are we looking at that?
Well, that's a good question. I saw the numbers and the projections have gone up significantly since we began these discussions, so, probably the next board meeting, we'll have Mr. Westover go over all the amount of money we have available in reserve again, the money that we've set back that is available. We'll get a better idea of how much of the ESSER's funding can be used towards this project as well. And then,
You wanna just, in a quick nutshell, for our new board members, tell what
Sure.
ESSER's funding is?
yeah, ESSER's, we received $1.5 million and ESSER's funding. And any of that, the money we can use for building improvements, projects that help combat COVID, heating and ventilation. There are some construction costs, so there are some steps that we'll have to go through. You have to get pre-approval. We've gone through some meetings with them, and we'll have to get approval from that organization and from the federal government that it's authorized. But if so, that could be a big chunk of this building project, this renovation project. You know, heating and air conditioning, through our conversations could be $300,000 to $400,000. And so we would have that money available, which would come off the top of that. And then we do have a sizable amounts of money set aside for capital improvements and projects that we can look to. We don't wanna take all the money from reserves, but we'll get Mr. Westover. We did that once with the board, show you what's there, and then we can go back and talk what would be a financially good decision on the district's part on how much we could put forward and how much could be financed for the project, so.
Does this number, Andy, have to be where you're projecting the 1,748,000, or does it?
No, I don't foresee us going anywhere near that number for financing, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Is there other stipulations when you get that money, like, is it just for, like, a certain, like, whatever you apply it for, or is it just,
Well, we're in the application process now, and there seems to be, they make you defend your purchases and what the rationale is and how it can help the district and how it can benefit. So we submitted the initial, they gave us set aside money from the 1.5, like 7% had to be set back for student learning loss, and 10% should be put back for curriculum improvements. And you can spend more, but they told you across the board, set aside money. So that application's been submitted. We're waiting on acceptance and approval from that. Then after that, we can begin the next step with submitting requests for the purchase and the use of that money. And that has to be used by 2023, so we would have to have that process done, and then we can do it.
But it's in this,
Perfect.
with mostly with the HVAC
Yes.
considerations.
Yep.
That's a big part. Anyway, so I just wanted did everyone understand what this is tonight then?
This is so that we approve through.
We approved to go to this place to get the funding of up to 1.7 million at 1.7%. The State Public School Building Authority.
No fees, no closing costs, covered under the Local Government Unit Debt Act, minimal paperwork. We just need to pass a board resolution, and we can pay that off at any time. And,
no penalties for early
no
payoff?
penalties for early. We did reach out to Northwest Savings, First Commonwealth, First National Bank, M&T, nothing came close to what we're dealing with.
You'd at least pray
In-
higher than that.
In the board packet, there is a breakdown that Mr. Westover provided. If you used 500,000 over 5 years, what the payment would be, what the interest rates would be, 750 and 1.7 million, so. On the 19th, we'll have him update you on the reserves, okay?
Yeah. saving for a rainy day for a while, so.
Yeah, we've done very well saving over the last 7 years, and we've been able to put money in reserves for projects and improvements to the districts and their students, and, we'll see what else. Mr. Krinchak, I sent a text during their presentation, the district property is right around 30 acres. So it's
38.
I have a-
The only reason I'm asking is like, they're having these food chain shortages. And my uncle actually works at Cambria Heights, he's a teacher there. And he was talking to a couple of his board members, and they're having the same issues to where they think that they might have to shut down the schools because of because they can't provide the lunches. So I'm wondering if maybe like down the road, maybe there'd be somewhere where we could start like the kids that, have them learning how to do a little bit of farming, maybe planting some plants, and they can put that towards, school lunches, or even, just to get them active in the community, and they have a stand set up where they could raise money, for trips or something. So that was my questioning behind, my reasoning behind the question.
The supply chain, I talked to a lot of superintendents, and some districts still do their own purchasing, and they're having a much more difficult process getting items in than the schools that are with companies like Nutrition Inc., like Glendale is. We've been pretty fortunate that they have a bigger contract and a bigger range, these companies, and far-reaching, so we still have issues, we just don't have the same issues as some other districts are having right now.
All right.
Excuse me, I have an important question, and it
Sir,
has to do with the
sir,
kids. It
sir,
has to do with the
Sir,
kids.
sir,
The asbestos,
sir.
the asbestos should have been removed in the nineties, mid-nineties. So, and that's law. That was law, that was brought into the law.
sir.
So there shouldn't be no asbestos here. It's cancer.
I understand that, but you need to hold your comments until public comment rolls around again. It'll roll around again in the regular board meeting, but it's inappropriate to interrupt the meeting.
Well, it's inappropriate,
Sir.
put your
Sir,
kids
Sir, I
in
understand.
jeopardy, and I
Sir,
will
I
say
just-
that.
You can say it in
Yeah.
a few minutes
Well,
when
yeah.
it's time to say that kind of stuff.
Well, it's
It's
kind
not
of
time for
different
public
right now.
comment right at the moment, but you'll be welcome to say it in a few minutes when we roll into the next meeting.
I'm saying that.
Well, you're out of order doing that, but you're welcome to comment when it's time for public
I
comment.
already made my comment.
Very good. Anyways. So is there anything else, Mr. DeSabato, from
No, the
administrative
work
standpoint?
session is over,
We can roll into.
Just bounce back to, just getting into the regular meeting,
That's the law.
just some information Mr. Klinchek gave us. On lodging, George, where did you check those rates at?
I just typed in Expedia. I mean, there's all kinds, all kinds of ones.
I'm just curious, I mean, the adjacent towns to Hershey would be Palmyra or Lincolnstown, and I've stayed in those areas, and they're usually around a couple $100s a month, and then when you look at a rate online, that doesn't include all their taxes and fees, and like a lot of areas like that have what's called an entertainment fee, where a local municipality, Pittsburgh does it, Hershey does it, where you're paying for some venue that the local government financed. They include that as taxes on there, so a lot of times your listed rate's much in total once you check in, and I've looked through Expedia before.
I actually did, I went through and booked the whole thing. It was a total $459 for 2 people for 2 nights each in their own room.
And it's not listed where it's at.
Yeah, it said,
That was state law.
the Hyatt Inn, I believe it was, in
Location.
Hershey.
Right in Hershey?
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
was
there
like
may be some-
4.25 stars
Yeah,
or something like that.
there may be off-season rates right now. I know I stayed during the summer, and it's pretty hard in anywhere in that general area, Lebanon,
Yeah.
Williamstown area.
I grew up, my sister actually lives in Williamstown, so.
Yeah. And then the same thing, going back to the car rates, there's fees on those also. And then I think we got to look at a liability issue. If we required our people to rent a car, where do we fall? Would the school rent it and then drive it?
Well, does the school not have any of their own transportation?
We have a van.
We have a
Two
van.
vans.
We have 2 vans.
Like, couldn't they just take something like that?
That's a possibility.
Those vans are often used by a lot of the sporting teams to travel to away games, football band use them to carry equipment, this kind of thing, so they're,
Horse van, yeah.
they're in use a fair amount.
And the new van is pretty large, it's like a.
Well, yeah, I'm just
It would
thinking
be
like,
very
I didn't
fuel
know what they did
efficient to do
because I saw there was trip to like the baseball game and they have to have a van or something to drive those kids, like.
Yeah,
If
we-
they didn't have a van or something like that.
Yeah,
they
we
would
usually
be
use
more-
the school vehicle for that, but,
Alright.
like if we required them to rent a vehicle in their name, we'd almost have to pay for additional insurance on it, because if they were driving something we made them rent, they get in an accident, then it would have to go back on their insurance, which would not be fair that we're requiring them to rent, so there'd be some other costs there. I'm not trying to downplay what you're saying, but,
No,
I
yeah,
just
I
wanna make
just
sure we
think,
check
you know,
into total cost.
If you go over the course of a year and, they got 10 different times a year, that's
Oh, yeah.
$5,000 you can save for the
And you
year.
can save money, I'm sure, yeah, no, I agree.
It's far enough out, that's all I
Right,
meant, like, it wasn't like it'd be like, all right, hey, we gotta go there
Right,
tomorrow.
and what we usually are, we're setting parameters for them, and then, they don't, I don't think they came to us with actual,
Numbers,
we're
yeah.
staying here.
Yeah, I didn't know, I was reading the thing and that's,
No, absolutely. Yeah, please do feel free to ask questions when you don't understand what it is, because there's still things like, we see and we're like, what the heck is this? So when you're new here, there's a lot of things that may not, don't feel dumb asking, because when you're first here, you don't know, and so, please do.
Oh, yeah, I won't be afraid to ask.
No, that's okay. Anyways, all right, anything else on, work session, so we can move into the regular monthly board meeting? So the regular monthly board meeting will now begin. Let me find my agenda for that. Regular monthly board meeting, here we go. Okay. Executive sessions, I don't believe we had any executive sessions since our last board meeting, did we? Or this wasn't one with the last board meeting? Okay. So at this time, I'll need someone to make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 16th, 2021 work session and regular monthly meeting. Do I hear such a motion? Motion by Kay, second by Theo. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Public comment? Public comment? Okay, I'm being heard. Going to committee reports. Athletic committee, Mr. Wallstrom.
Make a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 4 as read in the work session.
Questions, comments? Do you have a second on that? Or second by Mr. Cree. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Personnel committee.
Before we roll on,
Yes, sir.
while we're in athletics, 2 things. End of season coaches meetings scheduled for next Tuesday. You'll get something in the mail when Patty gets.
Thursday?
Huh?
Thursday the 14th?
Is it Thursday?
Is that when you want it? I haven't contacted the coaches, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're right, 14th is a Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Okay.
I had in my mind this next Thursday, okay.
So we're back to Tuesday. Tuesday the 14th, we have 4 coaches, volleyball, Hewitt, Haney, football, Trexler, and Ski Beck. We start at 5, 15 minutes apiece if anybody wants to show up. Talk to the AD, some minor things to cover. I don't see anything out of the ordinary there, so. But you will get that in the mail with the scheduled board meetings for the upcoming year. Second thing, the Football Booster Club has asked that the district pay the announcer for football games. Up to this time, the Booster Club has been paying the announcer for football games. Thoughts?
How much is it?
I think the total that he got was $500. $500
For the
The
year.
boosters pays the announcer $500 for the football games.
Basically 100 games, 500 games.
But there's a history that the football boosters have always done this, Mr. Wallstrom.
Well,
Please.
Yeah, if you go back many moons ago, I mean, that booth that's built up there was built by the boosters. You know,
The press box.
and press box and, concession stand, and things like that. Some of that's updating has been through the school, but the boosters have done that. The boosters paid the person that videoed the games, and they paid the announcer. I know that 'cause my wife videoed for a long time, and Joe Vesnesky's announcer for a long time.
So
That's the
Just-
way it's been.
just a little bit of side note, so in the contract, the teacher's contract, it's set out that all other positions, ticket collector, clock operator, scoreboard operator, are all paid via the rate that's set by the teacher's contract. If, I don't have a preference either way if the board decides, but if the board decides, in January, we'll have to do an MOU or an addendum to the contract to make sure that the union was okay, because it's not in our teacher's contract, and for whatever reason, it's never been in there.
The other positions are in the
They
contract,
are.
this one's not.
It's specified in there on what they get paid per game.
I think what has changed over the years too is the boosters have picked up a lot more cost of things that didn't happen back then. There's 7-on-7 league, so the kids get all the same shirts, they buy that, and they pay an entry fee to do that. Different camps the kids go to, boosters pay that.
Do we have announcers for the winter sports or anything? Is there,
No.
like, do we, is that, we do pay clock,
Yeah,
and
scoreboard,
ticket
there's
there.
no play-by-play for like basketball or wrestling.
Okay. I've seen that when because of the Zoom, when they were doing a lot of that way. Some of the schools were doing that, I was wondering.
It's not anything we can act on tonight, but if there was consensus, we could prepare for change to this moving forward, if there's thoughts.
Couldn't they just sell those candy bars you see all the time for $1 and raise $500 to pay the guy?
They do have a lot of
I'm
fundraisers.
sure they do have a lot of fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, my position, I think, just let them continue to pay. I mean, they don't let us pick who announces if we have to pay them, or.
Well, I would think we would hire them, just like we do all the other things.
Right.
They've always paid it. I know they paid the photographer for the boosters, yeah, because Katie did that, I think 2 years, and she was paid for the boosters. So. I think
Did they give a reason why?
They did not.
And I think it's the increased expenses they've incurred.
I understand that those are expensive of their choice though, to improve the program, or this is a
Partially.
necessity, partially.
They wanted varsity wanted the speaker to put up on the field to play music while they practice, they keep it to 100, it came to 250. So they had to pay it. There's been other things that have kind of incurred, but just neither here nor there.
Maybe they should use Tomlin's rule, no music during practice.
I guess it boils down to, if they're not gonna pay for an announcer, then we won't have one, if we don't pick up the tab.
That's what I was thinking.
So, there's that to consider too. And this is something we can't vote on tonight one way or the other anyways. But I don't think we can't really force them to pay for it. They're just, if they don't wanna do it, there won't be one. Anybody else have any thoughts, Mr. Prince?
We're forced to do it, then we get to set the price.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't
We're
just
taking it
put
over.
an ad,
$50 a little stiff.
you're advertised for teaching jobs, you can just put an ad in the paper for that. couldn't you?
Right, I just think 50 an hour, it's basically a couple hours, and 15 hours is a little steep, but maybe I'm wrong.
Ian, thoughts?
Neither, I'm sitting on the fence right now.
Sitting on the fence. Thoughts, sir?
Well, I mean, if there's a I think maybe advertise it, advertise it for half of what it costs them now. Somebody might wanna do it just for free. There's a lot of people that go to those games week in and week out just to go.
It is. Thoughts for the night?
Just that maybe it's an opportunity for a student too, who might have an interest in that kind of career in the future.
But then we're gonna need to have a say in it, so then I still think it should be in the contract.
Yeah, if we
We
take
have
over,
a say
it's
in-
gonna have to go.
It has to go in the
Yeah.
contract.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you have to be careful who you get there. They're on a public address system, talking to hundreds of people.
Correct.
Mr. Stacy, your hand.
I know there is a certain amount of a learning curve to that. Being able to quickly identify players, quickly identify who's got the ball, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but there would be, I would think, some qualifications for that kind of thing. To me, sitting up there watching him, it's not an easy job. He's got a spotter and they have to work together and.
Right, and all that talk is, if we decide we're gonna take it over, you know what I mean, then we can decide what we wanna do with it. Obviously, we can do whatever we wanna do with it, we don't have to do anything with it, we can say there will be no more announcer. We can do anything, or we can make up whatever we want, but I guess the big, consideration for next, we'll have to put this on the agenda is whether we wanna take over that or not. And then if we do, we're gonna have to work out the logistics on that, as far as,
So
an
did they
MOU
pay
with
him?
the
Who are the people
union.
that feed him the information, Brian? I said, who are they? I mean, they're,
There's a gentleman that sits up there next to him. I don't know who he is.
I
Just
just wonder if
since,
they're on staff or one of the boosters, or if they're
Whoever
paid.
does that, you get your people to come with you.
Oh,
You
okay,
get somebody, binoculars, spotters, who makes the town.
right, okay. So they're basically volunteers then?
Yeah, they're helping him. So if you're the announcer, you find your.
You bring your peeps.
Yeah,
So did we pay him this season?
I'm sure they did.
That's what I'm
Oh, no.
wondering.
I mean, I don't know.
We do that?
Or are they asking us to pay him for this season?
Well,
Move it and
I
move
don't
forward?
think we can do that.
No,
I think
we're not doing that.
It'll have to be for next year.
Yeah.
Well, I responded, tell them we're considering it moving forward. and
I
then,
think for a
But
match.
if they have to understand that if they're relinquishing it to us, that they lose all control over who it is. And what they're paying.
I think for the max of $500, it would be a terrible hardship for us to take it.
No.
Not even bid it down as people say.
I don't know how many people would be interested, I have no clue. Who's this, is Bobby McGarvey still doing it?
Mhm.
I mean, you gotta think, you do want somebody that's good at it, doing it, if you can, so. I think Bobby does, I've been there a couple of years, but always did a pretty good job.
He has a cult following with the shirts. He's
Yeah,
cash
right.
race.
man. Always just catch your ass.
Hold the
Did
phone.
they?
Hold the phone. Anyways, all right,
I'll get more information.
anything else for athletics, Mr. Walton?
That is it.
That's it, all right. Personnel committee.
Motion to approve items 1, 2, and 3 as read in the work session.
Questions, comments? I hear a second on that. Second by Kate. All in favor, aye? Opposed? So carried. Building and grounds, Mr. Winters.
Yes, motion to approve items 1A is mentioned in the work session.
Questions, comments? Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallstrom. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Discipline and curriculum, K.
Could you do number 2 separate, please?
We can.
In discipline and curriculum?
Yes.
Okay. Let me reread, 1B, so Suzanne Copley, Becky Link, looking for consideration, Suzanne Copley, Becky Link, Amy Abrams to take the fourth grade class to the Altoona Curve game on May 11, 2022, with ticket cost of $200 for substitutes. Additional chaperones, Jeanette Williams, Nathan Pino, Lisa Rickett, and 11 approved volunteers. So that will replace what I previously read. So we're looking for consideration, number 1A and B.
Discussion? Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Menzer. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
And then we're looking for consideration, as previously read, for number 2.
Questions, comments? I'm curious as to why you've asked this to be read separately. If you have a comment, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, I didn't look at my board packet earlier, did some quick, research to see where they get their news from, and I'm just not comfortable with the outlets they're using.
Please enlighten us, because I'd love to know that.
Washington Post, CNN.
Another question on that, when is that used in their curriculum? Is this something they just get online on their own to look at, or is it something that's included in the curriculum that we're getting the use out of it?
Honestly, it's mostly used in the elementary school. I think they use it for current events and things like that, so I don't know as many of the specifics. I know that the history classes do current events, but I believe most of the current events that are done in the high school are done from local newspapers and things like that. So Newzilla, I believe, is done more with elementary classes.
So are there other
Is the
options?
information on there over their head? You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm saying that I don't really believe there's any
It's a great.
nonpartisan news outlets. They lean one way or the other. And the ones they use seem to be all the ones. And I'm not comfortable with that.
I tend to agree with you. Me too. So what, are there other options to Newzilla? Or if we don't have Newzilla, is there any need for it? Can they pull from newspapers and local like the high school does?
Well, like I said, I think that it is written in such a way that is more accessible to younger kids, so that they, can understand it better. Honestly, I'm not as familiar with it. Like I said, I believe they use it more in elementary school. So this might be a good question if you wanted to table it, to talk to Kate about.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Let's
So we get some
table
more
this and
information.
get us some more information and perhaps some other options.
Maybe a printout of what they're getting, is it possible to print something out on there so we can look at it?
Sure. I'll have to do a little research.
Everybody comfortable with tabling this?
Yes.
Good, okay. So, number 2 will be tabled. And, anybody else have anything for just one curriculum? Okay. In Finance Committee, I'll take the first one here. I would like to nominate Richard Gates as board treasurer for the remainder of the treasurer's term. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wallstrom. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
After 2, 3, and 4, you want me to nominate this resolution and correct and read it?
What's that? Yes.
Just what?
Yeah.
All right. I make a motion for items 2, 3, and 4 as previously read in the work session. And new item 5, make a motion to pass the resolution of the Glendale School District Board of School Directors authorizing the undertaking of a project on behalf of the Glendale School District and the financing of same through the State Public School Building Authority. Whereas the Glendale School District located in Cambria, Clearfield Counties, Pennsylvania, hereinafter the school district is a public school district of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania governed by its Board of School Directors, and whereas the board has determined to undertake a capital project consisting of renovation of the science lab and other related work at Glendale Junior Senior High School, and to extend any of the remaining funds out of the capital projects in the school district as may be approved by the Board of School Directors. And whereas the board has received plans for the contemplated project from a registered architect, professional engineer, or other person qualified by appropriate experience, outlining the scope of the contemplated project and projected cost estimates related to the same. And whereas the contemplates part or all of the contemplated renovation project through the revolving loan fund program offered by the State Public School Building Authority. Now therefore intending to be legally bound, number 1, the school board hereby authorizes the administration to work with the State Public School Building Authority for a borrowing of up to $1,700,000. The term shall not exceed 10 years and the interest rate shall not exceed 1.75%. Number 2, the administration of the State Public School Building Authority shall finalize the terms of the borrowing and closing consistent with the project going out to bid in February 2022 and commencing soon thereafter, and will prepare and present documentation for further approvals as may be necessary to the school board upon preparation and finalization of the same. Number 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. Duly adopted by the school board in lawful session, duly assembled the 6th day of December 2021. That was it.
Okay. And that's actually that's number 2 is, correct, Patty?
Yes.
So
Okay.
what you just read actually is number 2.
Okay.
And just at the bottom of that, I just want to say it's resolution 120621-01.
Okay, questions or comments in finance? Here, second. By Mr. Creed, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. I think that is all of our committee business. At this time, I would like to, since Mr. Gates has taken over Finance Committee, obviously as our treasurer, I'd like to appoint Kay Stiver to the discipline, as the chair of discipline curriculum, if that's acceptable. Okay. As far as committee assignments go, everyone serves on various committees. There's obviously all the committees we talked about tonight. There's also Transportation Committee, which wasn't, didn't have any business this evening. So Brenda served on Transportation as well as the Athletic Committee. Would you be willing to take over those as members of those committees, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll put you in place where Brenda was on the committee assignments.
3 or 4 people per committee.
Correct.
So it was a transportation and what was the other one?
Transportation and athletics is where Brenda was. I sure will. Athletic Committee, Mr. Gary Wallstrom is chairperson, Rick Cree, George Grolinchek now, and Rick Gates. Personnel, Rick Cree, chairperson, Rick Gates, Theo Sinclair, Kay Stiver, Mr. Wallstrom, Ken Menser, chairperson, Building and Grounds, Rick Gates, Dr. Ian Holland, Mr. Wallstrom, Gary Wallstrom. Discipline Curriculum, Mr. Gates, chairperson, myself, Theo. Finance, Ms. Dubler was chairperson, obviously, and now Mr. Gates is, along with Mr. Menser, myself, and Kay. And Transportation is Jeffrey Gallagher, chairperson, George Grolinchek now, and Ken Menser and Kay Stiver. Did I miss Building and Grounds?
No, I think you mentioned
Yeah.
That's transportation as well. So I'm on transportation as well.
Didn't I say you for Transportation?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry, Kay for Transportation too.
I don't know.
in your chair and discipline curriculum.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're chair of Discipline and Curriculum, but you're on the Transportation Committee.
okay.
I mean, it's a general rule of thumb, if there's a committee meeting, any board member can come. But we just ask that if you're on that committee, you make every attempt to try to attend the committee meetings if at all possible. But you're free to come to any committee meeting that's there. Everybody is. Okay. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to adjourn. Motion made, second? Second by Gallagher, all in favor, aye. Aye.